It was a decade personified by sartorial flair. From cut to creativity, there are some standout trends that truly defined the 1970s. Some of the grooviest jumpsuits ever made were worn by both men and women in the 70s, with legends like David Bowie leading the way. Bell-bottoms, or flares, were the ultimate statement piece, made popular by the likes of ABBA, Cher, and even Michael Jackson. When it came to flares, the frillier, wider, and altogether more outrageous, the better. The miniskirts of the swinging 60s were old news in comparison to the transparent clothing movement, pioneered in the 70s by the likes of Ozzy Clark and Yves Saint Laurent. Wearing a see-through dress with no undergarments was certainly a statement. And this 70s model showed us that with any sheer garment, the most important accessory was a sassy attitude.
If you're going to be afraid and wear it, what people are going to think, don't bother. Wear a turtleneck. If you're going to wear a topless dress, then put it on and forget about it.
Platforms are the most iconic pieces of footwear of the decade, if not the 20th century. This glam rock footwear encouraged gender politics after both men and women chose to wear the height-boosting shoes.
Gone are the pre-lib days when you would be 2 or 3 inches taller than your girlfriend. Well, now, Mr. Figgin's shoe shops are striking a blow for men's lib by introducing a shoe with a 5-inch cork sole, which will enable you to regain your rightful place.
And whilst attitudes have shifted since then, there's one unmistakable look that has barely changed since it came screaming into the limelight in the 1970s. Inspired by the anarchic underworld inhabited by the likes of the New York Dolls, the Ramones, and the Sex Pistols, punk exploded onto the scene in the 70s with leather-clad mohawked youths using safety pins like no generation before. Perhaps the biggest testament to the 1970s fashion is the way it's continued to inspire us, even decades later.
It's the decade that gave us Flashdance and Footloose, Dallas and Dynasty, sheer lace, blue eyeshadow, big hair, and members-only jackets. Some of the most iconic fashion moments on film and television in recent history.
I got good news and bad news. What do you want to hear first?
For better or for worse, celebrities set the trends, and few artists embodied the 80s like Madonna. A year after the release of Like a Virgin, the Material Girl became a movie star, personifying the downtown New York City scene in the feminist comedy Desperately Seeking Susan. Heirloom earrings, fingerless gloves, lace crop tops, oversized hair bows, and bedazzled pixie boots. Susan's style was feminine and brash. And no group echoed that message louder than the Brat Pack. Molly Ringwald and Ali Sheedy were the faces of teenage angst in The Breakfast Club. The movie inspired the famous moniker that defined the young stars in a series of coming-of-age films, from Ringwald's prom dress in Pretty in Pink, to Demi Moore's oversized cardigans and lace blouses in St. Elmo's Fire, to the skirts, boots, belts, and boxy t-shirts worn by Julia Roberts in Mystic Pizza. They're trends that have reverberated through the decades. But the 80s weren't all about big hair and funky fits. Power dressing, tailored evening gowns, shoulder pads, and heavy makeup was the look that defined shows like Dallas, Dynasty, as well as The Working Class Woman. These looks brought power, finesse, and sometimes a little drama.
Start now with the complete workout for $9.95 and help change your body and change your life.
Hyper-feminine fashion was also blaring into homes in the form of Jane Fonda's workouts. The aerobics craze carried over into film, and later, in stores. Bikini-cut leotards and shoulder-bearing sweatshirts had mass appeal thanks to the casts of Three's Company and Flashdance. But women weren't the only ones making bold statements in the 80s. The men brought new styles from casual to classy. The decade gave us parachute pants, Hawaiian shirts, and Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Perpetually stone slacker Jeff Spicoli, aka Sean Penn, may be one of the most memorable characters of the decade. And 35 years later, checkerboard Vans are still selling out stores. The wave of coming-of-age films, 16 Candles, The Goonies, even Footloose, also meant members-only jackets and leather were making big comebacks. Miami Vice also put them on the map, along with South Beach style thanks to the Aloha shirts, tight jeans, double-breasted suit jackets, and t-shirts donned by the men, both Don Johnson and Tom Selleck. And it was the whole gang of Ferris Bueller's Day Off that made leather jackets, along with loose-fitting suit pants, t-shirts, and vests, a look all its own.
Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
But rebelling against it all were the punks. Army boots, piercings, and chain vests emerged as the anarchist movement swelled in mid-70s Britain. But by the 80s, counterculture had entered the mainstream zeitgeist, satirized by BBC sitcom The Young Ones. Vivian Bastard's denim vest, rock t-shirts, and orange tri-hawk snapped heads. The show was an instant hit. From the hyper-feminine to the hyper-masculine, to the characters intent on rebelling against it all, the 80s captured unforgettable moments of fashion. For those who lived through it, the photos may be better left locked away, but for others, it's a time worth reliving. Either way, we just can't seem to get enough of the 80s.